everyone, I'm Alish, and welcome back to the Native Podcast, friends. Before we start, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to learn real English the way it's actually spoken, not just memorized from books, because today we're talking about something that's holding so many learners back. It's the habit of translating everything in your head before you speak, and trust me, this habit can make your English sound slow, unnatural, and even a little robotic. So if you've been feeling stuck, this episode might just change the way you think in English forever.
And I think this one is especially important because we've both seen so many learners who understand every single word we say, but then take 5 or 10 seconds before answering. And it's not because they don't know what to say, it's because their brain is busy translating from their native language to English, then back again. And by the time they're ready, the conversation has already moved on, and that's why we're going to help you break that habit.
Exactly, and I get it, translating feels safe, right? You think, if I say it in my language first and then find the English version, I won't make mistakes, but the truth is, that safety net is actually slowing you down, making your speech less natural, and stopping you from using the full range of English expressions. Because many of them simply don't exist word for word in your language, so you end up sounding a bit off without even realizing it.
And that's such an important point, because some phrases just don't survive translation at all if you translate them directly. They might sound strange, or even completely wrong, and you miss out on learning how English speakers actually express those feelings or ideas. So instead of building confidence, the habit of translating is secretly building a wall between you and fluency, and today we're going to break that wall down.
One thing I tell my students is this: the more you practice thinking in English, even with very simple sentences, the faster you'll stop relying on translation. So instead of thinking, I'm hungry in your language and then finding the English words, you train your brain to directly picture the feeling of hunger and connect it to the English sentence I'm hungry, skipping your native language entirely, which makes speaking so much faster and smoother.
Yeah, and you can start super small. You don't need to think about deep philosophy in English from day one, but you can begin with what's around you, like thinking the coffee is hot or the bus is late, as you notice them in real life, and over time, your brain gets used to forming sentences instantly, without that slow translation step, and that's when English starts to feel like it's just another part of you.
I've even done this when I was learning another language. At first it felt awkward, like I was forcing my brain to work harder, but after a couple of weeks it became natural, and suddenly I didn't need to translate at all, because the words and meanings were directly connected in my mind. And this is the same process you can use for English, but you have to be consistent or you'll slip back into the old habit.
And honestly, Alish, I think one of the biggest challenges here is fear. People are afraid of making mistakes if they don't translate first, but I always tell them that speaking naturally with a few mistakes is 100 times better than speaking slowly with perfect grammar. Because conversations are about connection, not perfection, and people will forgive your mistakes if you speak with confidence and flow.
That's so true, and actually, translating too much can make your grammar worse, because your native language might use a different sentence order or tense, so when you translate directly, you end up saying things that don't sound right in English, even though they make sense in your language, and that's why skipping translation can actually help you use grammar more naturally without overthinking it.
Another trick I love is shadowing. When you listen to a native speaker and repeat exactly what they say as quickly as possible, you don't have time to translate. Your brain is forced to process English directly, and over time, this trains you to respond instantly in conversations without that mental pause. So shadowing is like a shortcut to thinking in English.
Yes, and even outside of shadowing, you can just talk to yourself in English throughout the day. Describe what you're doing, what you're feeling, or what you see around you, because the more you make English part of your daily inner voice, the less you'll depend on your native language to form sentences, and the faster your speaking will improve.
I think that's also why immersing yourself matters. If you watch movies, listen to podcasts, and read books in English, your brain starts to hear and see the language all the time, which makes it easier to think in English without effort and when you're surrounded by it daily. Translation doesn't even cross your mind because your brain's default mode slowly switches to English.
And it's not about pretending your native language doesn't exist. It's about giving English its own space in your brain so that you can switch between languages smoothly, like a light switch, without having to drag every thought through a slow translation process. Because that's what truly fluent bilingual speakers do naturally.
Exactly, and you know what's interesting? Once you stop translating, you'll also start to feel English in a more emotional way. You'll understand humor, sarcasm, or subtle feelings better. Because you're experiencing them directly in English instead of filtering them through another language first, which makes your conversations feel more alive and authentic.
And when you reach that point, speaking English stops feeling like a test you have to pass and starts feeling like just talking, like expressing yourself without worrying about if every single word is perfect. And that's when learning becomes enjoyable instead of stressful.
So here's my challenge to everyone listening. Pick a small part of your day, maybe your morning routine or your commute, and make it 100% English in your head, no translation allowed. And even if you only do this for 10 minutes a day, you'll see a huge difference after a few weeks.
And be patient with yourself. This is a skill you build over time, and at first it might feel slower or harder, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And one day you'll catch yourself having an entire conversation in English without realizing it, and that's when you know you've truly broken the habit of translating.
And that's the real goal, because thinking directly in English is what allows you to speak fluently, respond quickly, and connect with people naturally, without feeling like your brain is running a slow translation app in the background.
So to everyone listening, remember, start small, practice daily, and trust the process. Your brain is capable of so much more than you think, and English can become a natural part of you if you give it the chance.
And if you enjoyed today's episode and want more real-life English tips like this, make sure you subscribe and share this podcast with a friend who's learning English, because learning together makes the journey so much more fun.
Thanks for joining us today, friends, and remember, don't let translation hold you back. Think in English, speak in English, and live in English, because that's how you become truly fluent. We'll see you next time on the Native Podcast.